Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of my interview series. I'm very excited to have Lisa back on this program to talk to you today about her thesis on Chinese brands going global. It's a super interesting topic and something that I think many of us are watching closely. So welcome back, Lisa, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me again, Ellie. Very excited to be here.
So I guess where I want to start is, why do you feel that Chinese brands so far have not expanded very successfully into other markets outside of China?
Right, so this was exactly the same question I was asking myself a couple of months ago, because I somehow felt it is time, or there should be some brands going abroad, or there are rumors, or looking at Flores, they are having some smaller steps into that direction, but just now. So I was like, okay, why has this not happened yet? Especially it occurred to me when I looked at our neighbors. So for example, Korea, K-beauty was so big, in the past years, and they have a more Pacific. Or when I look at Japan, J-beauty was also a huge trend. They have Shiseido, the big groups, and they have all successfully made it global. But why not China? And yeah, so I was like, okay, what's wrong? And I started to do research, and I figured, okay, so what is the path of a brand, or what does it take to bring something onto the market? Started to research on the supply chain part, the channel, the brand part, and I figured, okay, supply chain, it's not a problem, because in China it is a manufacturing country. I researched the big manufacturers, and they are supplying actually the big global brands like Armani, Yves Saint Laurent from the L'Oreal group. Channel, maybe because Chinese brands, they obviously do not speak the foreign language. Maybe it's a little bit more fragmented. However, e-commerce exists now, and you can work through distributors. So that's probably also not a core problem. Then I looked at branding and marketing in particular, and I figured, hey, maybe there is a problem in the branding aspect of Chinese brands. Yeah, this is where the whole thing came together. I started my research and a piece of work.
Interesting. Yes, I agree. I think that the fundamental way of bringing a product to market in terms of the marketing aspect is so different in China. The way that it's marketed, the way that they talk to the consumers, of course, all the channels are different as well. It is very fundamentally different. So what do you think are those differences? Like, what are the main fundamental differences between Chinese brands and Western brands?
Yeah, so it's super funny, because I have been, for years bringing Western brands to China, and I've always praised how important it is to keep the core identity of a brand, to keep the core personality. It's like a character in the market, and you speak to different consumers that resonate with your values, resonate with your brand personalities. And we took that, or we figured that out together with the brand, took that and made it approachable and likable to the Chinese consumers. However, when I tried to take a few examples of Chinese brands, and I wanted to do the reverse thing, I kind of realized, okay, it's super difficult, because I couldn't grasp the core identity of it. And I feel like, that's the main problem. It really occurred to me when I was once doing a mood board. So we were bringing Essence to China, which is the biggest cosmetic brands in terms of market share in Germany. And we looked through magazines, looked at potential mood board assets. And then one of my team members just was holding the magazine and said, Lisa, you're in the beauty industry for so long. What is this model advertising for? So which brand is she advertising for? So all I could see was a Chinese model in a white kind of blazer, very straight hair down, and her look. So I was like, okay, this is for sure either Bobbi Brown or Armani. And then I said, okay, it's Armani. And then she flipped a page and it really was Armani. So it was an Armani look on a Chinese model in a magazine. And I could, maybe it's because I'm in the industry for too long, or you could argue, but at least I could recognize the brand without any product, without any branding. And that was where it really made switch in my head. And I was like, okay, take any other, any brand in China. Could we reach that? Or could we make the translation or localization so attractive to the consumer, the local consumer, but still keep the brand identity? And I feel like that's the missing part of today's Chinese beauty or consumer brands.
Yeah, because the Chinese brands are much more focused on, well, they build communities, right? Like some of the success that we've seen with Florisis, but also obviously some of the early success with Perfect Diary around those WeChat private groups, building that community, also involving the community in some of the product development, getting feedback on the products, like that sort of momentum helped them. But I agree in terms of that true branding, identity, and differentiation and story, it is more difficult to pinpoint.
Yeah, I like what you said, because that I feel like many people, or especially Chinese brand owners, are confusing branding with marketing. They jump directly into the marketing aspect. And I saw a very funny quote online which says, marketing is like asking someone on a date, and branding is the reason they say yes. So everyone in China is just doing marketing. Come date me. Come to. Let's go for a walk. Let's go in a nice restaurant. And they blast those messages out there through live stream, through communities, through Xiaohongshu, through all the social channels. And then as a consumer, I would ask, okay, yeah, I can buy you once or twice, but when it comes to repeat purchase, and when I ask myself, okay, why should I buy you again? Why should I not switch to the other brand, which has been sending me messages all the time, or I want to try something else? The why is missing. So I feel like that quote also really opened up my eyes in terms of the personality, because if a guy asks me on a date, I would probably be like, okay, let's try. But then if he asks me another time, like it's the second time or third time, I really evaluate, okay, how is this person? Do I like his personality? Is the conversation good? Do I like his values? And that part is missing most of the times. And I feel like it's the branding versus marketing aspect. Yeah, that's
And I think that's so important for Western brands who are going into China to remember as well, because I find that a lot of brands get caught up in this activation of the market approach, and they forget about, even though in the West they have a very strong brand and they're very branding led, in China, because of the whole system, they get swept up into live streaming too much, or all these things that will mean that people are buying them not necessarily for who they are, but because of someone else is telling them to buy it. And exactly to your point about repeat purchase, that's where the brand then may do great sales in the first year from all this activation, and then people don't repeat purchase because they're not really understanding the essence behind the brand, and even behind the product, like not understanding what is good about the product. I think that's and with Chinese brands, there has been this aspect around quality, not with all brands, but some brands, that's definitely something that's talked about in terms of, and even on Chinese social media channels now, Perfect Diaries had a backlash because they're not investing enough in R&D, and consumers are like, you're taking us for a ride. Like, why are you not doing better quality products? So I think that's also something that will be difficult when brands are going over, Chinese brands are going overseas, because there is already this prejudice as well from Westerners about quality in China, which is absolutely not always the case. Of course, there's some fantastic quality products out there, but I think it's that balance, right? I think that's something that's really key as well.
Absolutely. So it's the made in China tag that everyone has, which is historical. And we actually did a couple of research studies where I sent surveys in different European countries, mainly also Germany, and people would buy things that are for usage, but not as important. For example, something like maybe hanging up your clothes or something for cleaning, maybe some kitchen utensils. But when it comes to skincare and cosmetics, especially when you start to put something on your skin or vitamins, for example, where it's really important that it's qualitative, people tend to rank China as one of the lowest countries of their choices. And I think it's partially historical. It's also partially how the brand is designed, because design says so much about your brand, and about the language as well. So, if I see something on Amazon that has Chinese labeling on it and I'm a foreigner and the design is not super pretty, I would probably not buy it. It's just the connection is not there and I do not understand what's inside. So it's really the whole funnel of the identity, of the branding, of the appearance.
Totally. It's all those things combined.
Yeah, it's like dressing yourself, right? When I see a guy who has leather jacket versus a guy who is wearing a, I don't know, like a blazer or something, looking like a banker, and I know I'm more the banker type, or probably go with him on a date rather than with the Harley guy. I don't know.
Appearance, yes, appearance in for brands is certainly something that is important. So what do you think are the three main things then that Chinese brands need to address and change before they can have real success in Western markets?
So I would say the first one is definitely product. I think this is a global thing. If you do not have a good product in any category, in any market, you will probably not succeed. The second thing I would say, and this is arguable, is the appearance of the brand. So due to the fact that everyone perceives made in China as something cheaper, or due to the fact that people have prejudices or their opinions about Chinese brands, I'm not sure if really labeling or this Chinese pride thing is a same core value for the Western world as for the Chinese one. So of course this is arguable. This is part of the brand. And just a very simple example in the beauty industry. So Flora versus Perfect Diary. I'm not sure who will really succeed because this is something so new in the whole industry. But just personally, I feel like brands like Perfect Diary or Judy Doll, if they really figure out their core, and in color cosmetics, the look is so important. You have to stand for a certain look. At current stage, I feel like they're just more likely to succeed because they do not label, oh, hey, I'm made in China or I'm created in China. It's more like, okay, I have the innovation in terms of product color because the Chinese manufacturers are really good at that. I have an interesting, design, at least for Judy Doll, I feel like it's the case, or Little Ondine, and then go global with that brand versus Flora's approach, which is really enforcing the Chinese culture, and it's something very unique, but I'm just not sure about the current acceptance of the Western market here yet. So what I really like is, for example, brands like Nei. So they do a combined approach where they go to Asian Americans first, and they're kind of Chinese, but in a more elegant way or in a more modern way.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting one because yes, florists, they are already expanding globally. Like they're building teams outside of China, but it is such a Chinese aesthetic, right? And it's beautiful. Like the packaging is beautiful, but and I think they have had some positive feedback from bloggers and various other people about the packaging, but it's about that longevity aspect in terms of consumers, and that's all about whether the product stands up as well, of course. So it's it's difficult. So we've sort of, I suppose we've talked about in terms of the Chinese brands that have the most likely success in China. I mean, I think Perfect Diary, they've obviously pushed out into Southeast Asia a little bit, but not too strongly yet into the West. But they have a more neutral aesthetic, so I guess they have a potential.
Yeah. However, because recently I also spoke to one of their directors, who's responsible for overall strategy. But they're also struggling with the branding part. So she actually said that they're focusing all their power on the branding aspect. They're trying to figure out, what does C beauty mean actually? So if you think of K beauty, you have this look. It's like 3C, it's this model, it's the hair, it's the color range. If you think of J beauty, you have the same. So you have this very clear visual about, this very beautiful skin, a more a more pale maybe makeup versus the Korean one. But if you think C beauty, the imagery is not yet defined. And I think this is where most of the brands are struggling with, together with, what is Perfect Diary actually standing for? It's kind of the same problem like Shein. Chinese founders tend to do product and channel first, and then go back and think about, oh my God, what's my brand story? And then that sometimes can feel not as genuine as some of the founders, like for example, Bobbi Brown, who said, okay, I want to create something. I want to create a lipstick that looks like lip color. Or for example, Barbara Sturm, who said, okay, I'm a doctor and I really come from consumer needs, and this is why I created it. So it's really a stable, solid ground of founder story.
Yeah.
Versus some Chinese founders, not all of them, but some Chinese founders, who say, oh, okay, I have supply chain resources, I have channel resources, let's make a brand, right? So that's something different. I feel like that's when I say character, core identity, what's your personality, why are you doing this brand? Yeah, and if that's not answered not correct, but very in a stable manner, that can lead to future instabilities, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also quite a new thing, or I mean, not an established thing in China, to highlight the founder story, right? Like that founder story, the what's behind the brand. I mean, that only became a big thing in the West in the last 5 to 10 years, where brands really like celebrating their roots in terms of founders and things like that. It's not, there were the outliers like Bobbi Brown and Joe Malone that have done, really brought that trend on. And I think clean beauty, natural beauty, there's been a lot of people that are doing have created brands for real reasons, like sickness or issues with their skin, and they have that conviction. And I feel like that there is a little bit of an emptiness with a lot of these Chinese brands. There's money, as you said, money, knowledge, supply chain, like all the practical things are there, which is also important. It's also important, but it misses that romance. And I think now the Western consumer is used to that romance. And the product quality is just a given, but you want that romance and the fact that it links to those values that you hold as a consumer.
I absolutely 100% agree. I love that you say romance, because I feel like that's exactly, the thing you need to enchant your customers. I mean, color cosmetics and skincare, it's somewhat functional, but if you think about fragrance, or luxury or upselling, the French are, I think, the best at it. It's really about the story behind, the romance, as you said, to create this aspiration, to create this, I like to call it pull strategy, but it's so intangible and unpractical in a way for Chinese people. And I mean, Chinese people, they're known for coming from mathematics. They're very good at science. They're good in supply chain. So everything what is very practical and hands-on, but it's about art and philosophy aspect, the storytelling, the enchanting people aspect of it that is yet to be explored or further elaborated, I feel. Yeah.
It's it's going to be so fascinating to watch this evolve in the next few years, because we know that these brands are focused on this. Like, global expansion is part of their roadmap. That's part of their commitment to their investors, and well, they want to expand, and they will. But it's just, I agree, they need to figure out that piece that they're missing in terms of the brand story and branding. So very interesting, very interesting. Thank you so much, Lisa. Really great chat. And I'm sure people will take away a lot. And I'll put your details below for anyone that wants to have a further chat about this topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ali, for having me. I'm actually publishing the thesis as an ebook. So yeah, if anyone wants to read it, happy to share it.
I would definitely recommend it. I've read it. There's lots of very interesting analysis in there. And so, yeah, I'll put, when that's ready, we'll put all the details in as well.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot.